Let me now call the Gloucester Board of Health meeting of Thursday, May 1st, 2025 to order. It is roughly 5:35. We are in the Harbor Masters Conference Room. And I remind everyone that this is indeed a public meeting and everyone is welcome to attend in person. However, there is a Zoom link which provides remote access. Though people doing so be forewarned that the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. The next item on the agenda is a roll call. We can start with Gabby.
Gabrielle White, Assistant Health Director.
Tanya Curley, Health Director.
To Rosa, Chair of the Board.
Eric Kaplan, Vice Chair of the Board.
Erin George, Board of Health Member.
Marco Salazar, board for.
Okay. And
Special
Peter,
guest?
yes, please introduce yourself.
Peter Viteri, Vero Dana, LLP from Boston.
Very good. The next item on the agenda is public oral communication. That's an opportunity for members of the public to make a 3-minute comment on an item which is not on the agenda. Is there anyone?
We have no online attendees, and we have 6 panelists, and we do have 2 people in the public, so if you all, actually, you want to make comments? Are you here to listen?
No,
Just here to listen.
just here to listen. Okay.
And if you want to pull down that, if it gets too warm, feel free.
Feels good.
Okay, good.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the April 3rd, 2025 Board of Health meeting minutes.
I move we accept the meeting minutes of April 3rd.
I second.
So the motion has been seconded to accept the minutes as written. Any discussion, changes, edits? Marco, how do you vote?
Yes.
Erin, yes.
Eric, yes.
Joe Rosa, yes. The meeting minutes of April 3rd are approved as written unanimously.
State of Board of Health meeting?
It is.
Oh, all right, you go there.
Do we offer this gentleman opportunity? to
Sure.
answer?
Are you here to make a comment?
Or just to
Just
listen?
in a sit and listen.
Oh, if you just want to sit and listen, by all means. Next item on the agenda is the meat of the agenda, and that's our briefing of the board on the site suitability hearing process for Eastern Waste Services at 24 Condoline Road.
So Chairman, if I can, I'd like to introduce Peter, I almost forgot the name, Peter, how could I do that? Peter Vittori, who's been hired, as you know, by council. And for the rest of the board members, Peter and Peter Durking, who you might see copied in emails as we communicate to you, are outside counsel that we brought in to help make sure that we're following this process appropriately. So as you know, the hearing officer, Art, will have a role in that as well, who we've all voted in and have met before. Art wanted to be here tonight, but he couldn't because of the scheduling challenge. So Peter's going to be briefing us on things that we need to know surrounding both how the hearing will be run, as well as what your role is in that process. And I think it's important to understand we're not discussing elements of the application tonight. We're discussing literally what our jobs are over the next.
Yeah, it's important that we not deliberate on the actual item on the agenda because that's not what the agenda says. So otherwise the public would be at a loss to hear what is going on.
And so with that, let's hand it over to Peter and welcome.
All right, thank you. And hello, everyone, board members. Peter Viteri from Vero Dana, LLP, law firm in Boston. So as you know, Eastern Waste Services LLC is proposing to locate a solid waste facility in the industrial park at 24 Condoline Road. Massachusetts law, specifically Chapter 111, Section 158, requires local Board of Health approval in order after a public hearing is held before any place can be used as a site for a solid waste facility. So that's the law that is basically governs the entire process for citing a solid waste facility. There's a component of the law that starts with the Department of Environmental Protection. So at the state level, it's really a 2-step process. The first step in the process, once there's an application by a proponent of a project, is the DEP reviews it and makes a determination to see whether or not the site is suitable for a solid waste facility. They make that determination based on specific criteria that is listed in chapter 111, section 150A and 1/2. And also further defined in department regulations 310 CMR 16.40. So there's specific criteria that apply to the type of facility that there is. This is the proposed facility is a transfer station for construction and demolition debris specifically. So it's a transfer station. There's other types of solid waste facilities like disposal facilities like landfills. This is a transfer station, so for a waste handling facility or transfer station, there's 7 criteria that are specific to that type of facility, and then there's 12 other criteria that are just generally apply to all types of solid waste. So in total, there's 19 criteria that are to be reviewed during the process to determine whether or not the site, the property is appropriate for this type of facility to be put there. The Department of Environmental Protection has issued a determination about a month ago, April 3rd, they issued a determination to find that the site is suitable for this type of facility. So step 1 of the process has been completed, and now step 2 is the local Board of Health, your review of it. Your review is independent of the DEP's review, meaning you're not bound by the DEP's decision. And your review is plenary, as it is, meaning you can consider all of the site suitability criteria that you find applicable or is warranted. I'll say that bear in mind that the standard of your review is you have to make a determination of suitability unless you make a specific finding supported by evidence presented into the record at the hearing that the site or citing the facility at this location would constitute a danger to public health, safety, or the environment based on your review of each of those 17 criteria that I've mentioned. So that's sort of the standard you're looking at when you hear evidence at the hearing, whether there's a danger to public health, safety, or the environment.
Peter, can I exercise my prerogative as chair and interrupt you?
Absolutely.
So the state's dismissal of some of the concerns in that list of 19 things is based on state regulations, state laws, state rules.
It's the same
It doesn't-
set of rules.
It doesn't utilize Gloucester's own regulations.
That's correct. Yes. So the regulation, the state law, so there's a statute. That's state law, and then there's regulations that the Department of Environmental Protection has issued pursuant to that statute. And it's all sort of state level
Right.
stuff. So it doesn't take into account any Gloucester ordinances that might apply.
And those ordinances within Gloucester are applicable to this application. Is that true?
I don't believe that's the case. I don't think
No.
there's a place in this process for any local consideration for this process. It was just
Okay.
site assignment. Now, I'll distinguish site assignment, which is just looking at the land and determining whether this piece of property is appropriate for a solid waste facility. It's not a permit for construction. It's not a permit for operation of the facility. So the applicant has to go, once the site assignment process is complete, and if the applicant gets the approval for the site to be located there, the applicant still has to go back to the Department of Environmental Protection and get basically an authorization, what's called an authorization to construct and an authorization to operate, which are basically just other permits for it to build the facility and then to operate the facility. And there's additional procedures that go on in connection with both of those permits, public comment processes.
But there is, the state has considered, for instance, distance from wetlands or areas of environmental concern by state regulation.
Yeah, so those are within the criteria that are to be considered. Those criterias are set by state law and the state regulations.
Gloucester has stricter regulations, do they apply?
They do for all of their businesses. Anybody, like as an example, our septic system
Yeah.
regulations are universal regardless of state ordinance or anything else, our regulations hold. So we just went through that with short-term rentals as an example and others.
So I mean, they would apply, this process doesn't invalidate any kind of local ordinance or laws that apply. They're not relevant to this procedure in the sense that you can't make a decision on this site assignment, this specific site assignment determination based on any of those local rules. But the applicant will still have to comply with them. Like, for instance, if there's something that impacts the Conservation Commission, if there's wetlands concerns under the State Wetlands Act or the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance, the project or the applicant still has to come and file a notice of intent before the Conservation Commission, for example. Or if there's some work that needs to be done to upgrade the septic system, they would still need to file and proceed under Title V.
Well, Title V is state, but we have local regulations.
And local regulations as well. That would be a normal procedure, but those ordinances don't get consideration in this procedure. I guess the board is constrained to the state regulatory criteria that's listed in here for this specific process. But this process doesn't invalidate any other local, for example, zoning also processes that need to happen in order for, the next step of the process for the applicant, which would be, applying for permits to construct the
Yeah, I
facility.
guess I'm not.
I'm not understanding either.
Understanding
Can-
this,
You mind if I
because-
ask a question?
Sure,
So,
sure. Go ahead.
do the states, I apologize,
Yeah,
do
go
the,
ahead.
I think this is kind of what you're asking, but do the states ordinances and the DEP supersede our local regulation? Like if we were to make a decision, if they said already that they have approved the site, are we obligated to then vote yes? Or
No,
can we use our local ordinance to say yes or no,
well,
right?
So
That's, I guess my question.
yeah, I mean, it's, you're not bound by the DEP's determination that the site is suitable. You get to make your own independent determination based on your review and hearing of the evidence. But your review and hearing of the evidence is confined to what the state law tells you can review. And
So it's not local.
it's
Well,
not,
the
and it's
state law
not anything,
actually gives us rights to establish local regulations.
but I don't think there's a way for you to bring those local regulations into this site assignment process. This
You
process.
say that because they don't affect health and safety, or?
I say that because there's no language in the site assignment statute that sets forth and establishes this review process to consider the local ordinances and laws. But at another time, when the project, still has to come before, for other permits and things like that, I think those local ordinances would still apply. It's just, this is a completely state law driven procedure for
Okay.
specifically deciding whether or not this site in this property is appropriate for a solid waste facility. So it's driven by the state law and the state regulations.
So we're basically undertaking the same process as the state, but just at the local level of the Board of Health approving it, the same criteria that the state used, we're reviewing it to reach our own determination and have to vote on it unless there's evidence introduced that we don't end up taking a vote, right?
That's right,
Okay.
yes.
So our local regs don't count? Is that what you're saying? That's
They,
what I mean by the
Yeah.
state's regs supersede ours.
the difficulty for me is that I don't think there are local regs that apply to this procedure.
Well, there's well setbacks as an example, there's septic
Mhm.
regulations, then there's a septic system on this property. Those are two examples of regulations that we subscribe to both state and local. And again, in the CMR for state, 310 CMR 15, it establishes that you, as the local municipality, can establish regulations on top of the baseline of, say, Title V as an example.
Right.
So that would say that those are all state laws because, they give us the right to establish those laws. And again, we hold strong on that for all businesses. in our evaluation of it. So people come to us before, I think where this group's coming from is they come to us for design plan review. It's speculation at that point. We think we want to site this septic system here. And the state requirements as well as our local regulations go into our approval of that,
Mhm.
and it is denied if not, so. this
Okay.
is- Yeah, so
but
that's where this line of questioning is
Right.
coming from.
But I would say that if the project is coming, if the applicant comes in and says, well, we need to upgrade the septic system at this property. That's a different process. Okay, that's not part of this site assignment process. That is of your local, review process for what you normally do for septic system work in Title V. So that's independent of this, that's separate from this. So I would say that, it's just not the time for you to review those concerns, because that's not what this procedure is for. This procedure is specifically for this site assignment that's governed by state law, and it's whether or not this site is appropriate site for a solid waste facility.
So our regulations will come up later in the process.
Right, in the same way that any development of property would trigger your regulations. They would come up in the course of that.
So this is not the end of this is not the end.
This is not the end of it, because there's not even like construction plans under review in this procedure.
Okay,
Um,
as long as we still have
yeah,
ability to decide.
right, and then just because if they get an approval, if you issue an approval here, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the line for this facility. They still have to go through the state construction approval process, the state operating approval process, any local construction approval process, including, if they need a special permit, they have to go through a zoning process. If they need, if there's any wetlands impacts, they would need to go through a conservation process. If they need to do anything that impacts septic or anything else within the Board of Health's regular jurisdiction, they would still need to come in front of the Board of
And it's
Health.
possible that failing to get those kinds of approvals could stop the process. I mean, it seems rather bizarre that we're talking, normally when someone comes to us for new construction, and they're within certain boundaries of wetlands, for instance, we can say, no, you can't do it. You're not going to get a variance. And that's the end of the process. Whereas here, you're saying that because the state has already approved things, that we can't bring in those things that may in fact be problematic, given our rules and regulations, to the health and safety of the environment and as well as the people.
I'm saying we're before that process. You said when new construction comes in front of you. Think of it as this is a pre-construction process. This is before you even start thinking about what you can build on the property. You're looking at the property itself and saying, is this property an appropriate property for this type of facility?
So why would the state then, ask a hypothetical question, why would the state then think that local boards of health would have some special insight into suitability that the state wouldn't have?
I think it's more of a power sharing thing. It's so,
Local conditions that you're aware
It
of,
just
that they're
doesn't
not
make
aware of from the
Well,
rest of
like-
this
Yeah,
process.
based on the state, what the state criteria is, that we would have a better understanding of Gloucester of how those state rules and regulations apply versus the state who might not have as intimate of knowledge, right?
yeah, it's more of you as the residents of the municipality get to decide where you want a landfill or a junkyard or some solid waste disposal. I mean, this is a regulation that goes back to the 50s before there were really any regulations.
But we
They
can't
were
say we
dumping
just don't
grounds.
want it there. We have to apply our understanding of the rules and regulations as they apply to health and safety of the populace and the environment.
Right, based on that criteria. You review the criteria and you make a finding of whether or not there's a danger to public health.
Right.
safety,
And the
environment.
the boundaries in that process are set by the state, not by local regulations.
Correct.
Okay,
So we'd have to make our decision based on the state's requirements and criteria. And later on, make another one determined by our local.
Yeah, but it would be a different
Right.
determination, yeah.
But I'm saying like we're confined by the state's regulation, and we would have to then review that and say, this is why we think it doesn't,
So be it.
meet suitability, right?
Yeah,
Based on the 17 criteria, right?
yes,
So it's confined solely to that and not consideration of the local regs.
correct.
Okay, I think we've made you say that a number of times.
It is a bizarre process. It's a unique process and it applies specifically for solid waste facilities because, I think there's a special concern about solid waste facilities.
As there is housing, as there is many things, and the state normally would say, I'm gonna make a law, you're gonna change your ordinance. In the case of our environment and health, they make a law and we interpret their law based on our regulations and state regulations. So this is the first time we've ever been exposed to a place where the state is saying your local regulations don't matter. So I think what's important in answer to this question then, if the board has a concern that they know something that's being considered is in violation of a local regulation, would it be fair for the board to say, per the state regulations, we have no reason to disapprove, but this would have to come before the Board of Health again, prior to any permit being pulled for anything for local regulation review. Is that a fair caveat that the board could put on any criteria?
Yeah, it will, because this is what ultimately is the result of the process is the board issues a decision. Decision could be an approval, decision could be a denial, if there's a finding of, a danger to public health or not. If the decision's an approval, the board also has the power to attach conditions to the approval. Any conditions that the board thinks are necessary to prevent essentially a danger to the public health, safety, or the environment. A common condition, very common condition, and one that is likely, I would think, to be put on is the applicant has to comply with all other applicable local, state, federal laws. Very broad thing, but it basically says the same thing as for the rest of your construction process of this proposed facility, you need to comply with zoning, you need to comply with conservation, you need to comply with other Board of Health laws and regulations that might apply. So I would say that this is sort of a preliminary review process before, and it doesn't invalidate sort of the rest of your regulations. It's just the rest of the regulations come later in the process. This is sort of just a pre-construction kind of review process, and the specific process is set by the state standards, and there's no concern or avenue for bringing in the local regulations for it. Okay.
We
So-
interrupted you, were you?
Yeah, I'll talk about the procedure a little bit, so.
Okay,
By the way, I've asked the harbor master if there's any way to draw down heat in this room, just so you're all aware. We're not at yoga studio. Quality here.
So the process is set up as sort of like an administrative hearing that you would see at like a state agency in a way. It's all designed to create a record that can be suitable in case there's an appeal to Superior Court, appeal for judicial review. So the decision ultimately falls under the State Administrative Procedures Act, Chapter 30A, Section 14. That's the typical statute for judicial review for an agency decision. The Board of Health, even though it's not a state agency, for purposes of this proceeding, it's treated like a state agency. And so anybody who's aggrieved by the final decision can take an appeal the same way they would take an appeal from, for example, a decision of the DEP or any other state agency. Creating a record of the proceedings and all the evidence that comes in is sort of a lot of what the procedural regulations are aimed at doing. There's a hearing officer who's already been appointed, that's Art Krieger, he's paid by the applicant, and he's an unbiased, basically facilitator.
his fees are paid by the applicant.
That's right, his fees are paid by the applicant. His fees are paid by the applicant.
It's not
off
work.
by the
He works for-
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's an unbiased, basically facilitator of the process, and his role is basically to define any issues of review, any legal issues or any factual issues. receives evidence. He makes determinations about what's relevant evidence or what's irrelevant evidence, what comes into the record or what gets kept out of the record. He ensures an orderly presentation of the evidence. Basically, he sets the order of witnesses. He sets the, procedure of deadlines when things are due, organizes the filings. And in doing so and ensuring an orderly process, he aids the board in the board's review and ultimately issuance of a decision. The hearing officer does not make the decision. The decision is up to the board to make, whether or not they approve it, deny the proposal, attach conditions, what have you. That the ultimate decision is the board's. There are parties to the proceeding. The first party is the applicant, Eastern Waste Services. They're represented by Joel Favaza of Seaside Legal Solutions. The board is represented by us, myself and Peter Durning, my colleague at Vero Dana. Our job is counsel to the board. We're basically the board's attorneys. We coordinate with the applicant's attorney and the hearing officer to set the schedule of witnesses, of when filings are due, when evidence is due, which we've already done. We issued, the hearing officer issued the pre-hearing order that has been circulated, you might have seen, is posted on the public website. We coordinate with the
Have
board's.
you seen it? I think I sent it to you all, right? Yeah, okay.
We coordinate with the board's expert and fact witnesses. The board has hired previously Weston and Sampson to engage in peer review and technical review of the application. Brian McCormack from Weston and Sampson is on. We are coordinating with Brian to prepare his pre-filed testimony. Basically, the way the testimony works is each of the parties prepares written pre-filed testimony that they submit before the hearing. The board has it available to review before the hearing. And then at the hearing, all the witnesses that submitted pre-filed testimony appear in person. They give a quick summary of their pre-filed testimony as their direct testimony. And then they'll be open to cross-examination by the other party's attorneys. And they'll be open to direct questioning from the board members. The other thing that us as counsel to the board is doing is we're going to assist with your preparation for the hearing and your drafting of your decision, formulation of conditions and things of that nature. The Manchester by the Sea Board of Health, because they are, because the proposed facility is within a half a mile of the municipal boundary, they are what's referred to as an abutting Board of Health under the regulations, so they are afforded party status if they so choose to participate. I think Dominique reached out to them and let them know that, gave them the pre-hearing order, let them know to participate if they want. I'm not sure if they've chosen to or not. But
I do
they,
not yet have a registration by them.
okay, they have the right to participate as a party. Persons that are substantively and specifically affected by the proposed facility are allowed to petition to intervene as parties. So basically, these could include abutters, groups of abutters, or 10 citizen groups, or any other person that has a specific, essentially, is specifically affected by the facility. These persons must register prior to the hearing, meaning they have to file a registration statement with Dominique and with the board before the hearing, basically setting forth the reasons why they are substantially and specifically affected by this proposed facility. Abutters and groups of abutters are presumptively affected, so they just have to register and they will be afforded party status and they can participate as parties in the proceeding. Other persons who aren't directly abutters or are 10 citizen groups, they have to file a petition to intervene. Basically, they make a written statement for why they are specifically affected or why they think that there's, as a group, there's a danger to public health, safety, or the environment. And the hearing officer makes a decision on their petition about whether to admit them as parties. And the applicant has an opportunity to oppose that petition.
During the hearing,
This all happens before the hearing.
before the hearing.
During the first night of the hearing, we'll mention how the nights of the hearing going, but the first night of the hearing will be administrative and procedural, so those decisions will likely be made then. And then finally, members of the public are allowed to participate as participants. It's a sort of a lower, not at the level of parties, but they're allowed to participate in the hearing basically by standing up and making comments during the hearing. There'll be an opportunity, I think the hearing officer will allow an opportunity for members of the public to basically step up to the microphone and state their concerns with the project. And also to submit written public comments into the record too, if they wish.
So can I ask you a couple of questions, leading questions that I think will be helpful for clarification?
Yep.
The timing of somebody who wants to step up and simply read their comments is at the end of the meeting, I think, but we're going to be checking with Art as to what point in the hearing. And then the second thing is, if you are an intervener, you will take the stand, so to speak, and testify, and then will you be cross-examined, or can you cross-examine? So what's the rights of an intervener or a party?
Yeah. So the rights of interveners, they have all the rights of a party the same. They basically have the same right to call an expert witness, a fact witness. They have the same right to submit pre-filed testimony. They have the same rights to cross-examine and the same rights to make oral arguments that any party would have. Participants don't have that same level of involvement. They are simply just, expressing their opinions or making their comments public, either in writing or orally during the hearing.
And that's our sort of net new information that we'll be adding to our FAQ, because that wasn't sort of described earlier, so we'll be changing that up. As of the meeting today, we uncovered that that's an aspect of how you can participate here.
When do people have to register by? Because the public hearing is next Wednesday, so is it like the day before, or what is the timing for people to be able to do that?
I think the hearing order contains it, but the deadline, so the first night of the hearing is it's May 7th, so next Wednesday at 5:30 in Kairos. The hearing officer is only available remotely, so there's not going to be any evidence presented of that first night. It's just going to be sort of an opening, because the regulations have tight deadlines for when you can open the hearing in a certain number of days after the board receives the suitability report from DEP. So it's simply going to be opening the hearing and then continuing it to another date when the parties everybody's been available, or council has agreed that they're available, which is going to be May 12th and May 15th. So on that first night on May 7th, the hearing officer may make some rulings on administrative questions and other procedural matters. For example, he might rule on intervener petitions. He might just kind of identify who is registered as parties. He might set the actual parameters for cross-examination of witnesses, how the question is going to be going, when public comments are taken, either at the beginning or at the end, things of that nature, basically setting the ground rules for how the hearing will proceed. And then starting on the second night of the hearing on May 12th, that's when the actual evidence will come in. That's when the expert witnesses and other witnesses who submitted pre-filed testimony, that's when they'll actually get onto the stand, give their direct testimony, be subject to cross-examination, and so on. And that'll continue basically until it's completed. Right now, there's May 12th and May 15th from 7 to 10. That's 6 hours of hearing. Hopefully that's enough, but if that's not enough and it needs to continue, then everybody will basically decide when the next date will be and schedule, additional night of hearing as necessary. Sometimes these things can go on for quite a while, and sometimes they wrap up in one night. It's really hard to predict.
Can I ask another question on your behalf?
Yes.
It's important, I think, to explain to the board the difference between filed testimony and what they might hear in the room
Mhm.
and what they're, how they should prepare for that. So we covered that a little bit today during
Yeah.
our conversations.
So, there's a little bit of homework. There's going to be testimony that's obviously filed before the hearing starts. We got this morning the applicant's pre-filed testimony. Which was essentially, there was a slide deck presentation from Tetra Tech, who's the applicant's consultant. And there was a brief sort of, kind of like an affidavit from one of the Tetra Tech consultants, basically incorporating their prior filings, the application, response to DEP's comments, things like that. I believe we're posting all of those things on the public website, so
Well, with the exception of the list we came up with today that I need still
Right.
clearance, so there's already part of the DEP's view of the world are things such as during public comments that when the application was submitted to DEP, parties that wrote in at that point in time, so the EDIC, the Gloucester, help me out, what does it stand for? EDIC.
economic
Yeah,
development.
economic
Thank you. The,
Industrial corporation.
Thank you. So they wrote a note to the DEP about the considerations. The city wrote a note to the DEP about the considerations, which was an amalgamation of a lot of different sides of city departments. It included the Weston and Sampson Independent Review as an example. Then the applicant responded to that, to all of those things to the DEP. So I think none of that may make it into the room where you're actually going to hear a witness saying that. But it's important for you all to have read that and understand those issues and concerns. So as they relate to our jurisdiction, which is health and safety as a mini DEP, a local DEP.
Yeah.
Sitting here.
Yeah, and so what the regulations call the record below, which is basically the record from the first step of the site assignment process, which was DEP's review of the application up to their issuance of the suitability report. So that includes the application, that includes the suitability report, and that includes all public comments that were submitted to DEP and the applicant's responses to those comments. I think they're all gonna be posted. I think they could all be circulated with the board members, but I would encourage all the board members to review those materials prior to the hearing, so you're familiar with them at the hearing, as well as all the pre-filed testimony and any public comments that are submitted, up until the opening of the hearing next week.
So we'll be adding to our public list of documents. So I can distribute them all to you, but also as you're getting to this workload, the best place to go is to the FAQ or to the page that we've created for this, and because all of the documents that are available will be there. And then another question is the comments that I'm receiving now, are they now, as soon upon receipt, we talked about at intervals, sending them out?
Yeah,
And is that something that we post also? All public comments are posted on our site as well?
yeah, because they'll all be part of the record eventually, and all of these things that are in the record, they're things that you can draw from as you consider the criteria and make the ultimate decision. So you should be, I'd encourage you to be familiar with all of them. So they're also should inform, questions you might ask of the witnesses at the hearing as well. There's also a site visit May 12th at 3 o'clock at 24 Condolen Road. The applicant is hosting the public for an informational session, essentially, to view the site, understand the proposed facility, but there won't be any substantive discussion of the issues or of any of the criteria at that site visit. It's simply just a time to go and see the site, make observations, They might do some general, the applicant might do some general information things like, this is where the building's gonna go. This is where the traffic is gonna flow into the facility, things like that, but they shouldn't be there shouldn't be any discussion of any sort of substantive issues that have come up in the peer review reports or the technical comments or anything like that.
Peter, will you be there for that site visit?
I will
to
be
ensure
there.
That is, okay, good, thank you.
Yes. Board members are welcome to attend. You don't have to, but if you do attend, I encourage you to observe. Ask general questions sort of about the proposed facility and things that are proposed in the application. But not to deliberate, to save, any kind of discussion or deliberation of substantive issues. Save those for the hearing. Jot down questions and notes that you might have on those substantive issues and save them to ask them at the hearing. So.
Peter, can I
Yes.
just ask, since we have a representative from Weston and Sampson that has been listening in, it's an opportunity to ask Brian, if you can hear us. Your review, Weston and Sampson's review and conclusions did not take into account Gloucester's local regulations, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we were,
Okay,
like Peter mentioned, limited to the criteria as established in the 310 CMR 16 regulations.
okay. So we did it properly, or Weston and Sampson did it properly then, right?
Yes, hope so. Fine, so after the hearing is, after the evidentiary hearing is concluded, the first 2 nights, or if any additional night is needed for further evidence, there'll be some time for the board to kind of absorb, consider everything that was presented, and then there'll be another meeting where the board actually deliberates, discusses, and makes a decision. And then the board has to issue a decision by June 21st. There's a 45 days from the commencement of the hearing, the statute.
Will anything further be happening in that interim period?
No evidence should be coming in, but we'll be, working with you, council will be working with you to draft a decision, discuss potential conditions that might apply. If there's a particular concern that the board has about something, we can, formulate a condition that might address that.
Is deliberation all in public forum?
And the ultimate deliberation, yes, will be in a public meeting in front of.
So all that you just described, is that in public forum?
The conversations with council will probably have a combination. I think there might be some. Obviously, there's open meeting law requirements against deliberations via email, so it would probably just be, individual conversations between board member and council. Or questions or things coming through you or something in conversations with us. But then there's also an opportunity to deliberate, in a public hearing as well with questions to council as well. It's really sort of open-ended the way that the board wants to formulate it, and how that goes. There's kind of different ways that it's done. But we can talk about the best way, or the way that the board would prefer to be done. So.
You already went over this, and I don't know if you're gonna get to it later, so you can tell me to wait. During the proceedings, when we hold hearings here, the board members ask, the applicants directly questions. Is that gonna be how this hearing is going to operate, or
Yes.
the role of counsel in our fielding questions or cross-examining or any of that? How's that?
Yeah, there's an opportunity for the board to ask questions of all the witnesses.
Directly, not
directly.
through you as an example.
Correct, directly. So the board can participate basically directly by asking questions. I think it's going to be essentially, there's the direct examination where the witnesses summarize their pre-filed testimony. And then I think the council cross-examines them, asks questions. And then I think there's like a third period where the board can ask the questions of the witness. And I believe the way that the hearing officer is setting it up is that it's going to go criteria by criteria. So, there's going to be a presentation on the first criteria, and then all questions and cross-examination on that criteria are going to be completed. And then you're gonna move on to the next criteria and so on, and just kind of do it, so you're not jumping between criteria back and forth, so. You can, break down your questions and comments and concerns by each of the different criteria as well. So I'll just finish by saying, more about the record that's being created. It's going to consist of the record below of those documents that were in front of the DEP, public comments, responses, the application, the suitability report, pre-filed testimony and exhibits, oral testimony during the hearing, and public comments, written and oral presented during the hearing and before. I'll just caution that, be aware that everything the board says during the hearing will become part of the record. The proceeding is going to be hybrid, so it's going to be in person, but over Zoom, and the Zoom is going to be recorded. So the opportunity to make a transcript is available to anybody based on through the getting a copy of the recording of the Zoom. Again, that the compilation of the record is important for preservation of the rights of parties that want to appeal. So that's essentially everything I've prepared, and happy to answer any more questions.
And Art will be orchestrating this as sort of the MC, as it were.
Correct, yes, that's probably the best way to think of it, is the MC.
Guys feel like you're, any other outstanding questions? You'll also be guided during the meetings. So I sent out an email last night. So if you have a moment, and I'll send out those other documents we talked about, so that any questions that you have can be centralized and shared with all parties, so that if there's an opportunity for, say you have a question that the testimony is already in, but Art sees it as a really valid question and he wants to, I don't know, let more testimony be presented, that would be up to him, but it's important that we are able to get our questions together and get them submitted. That's what I'm doing. One thing that's unclear is like the timing of this board's questions against the ability to affect the testimony between now and the 7th.
Right, so obviously, as you review the record below and any of the pre-filed testimony, and if you have questions, ready, I would send them to Dominique, because Dominique's going to give them to us as counsel, and then we're going to use them to prepare our cross-examining questions, but also help Brian and Weston Sampson prepare some of their pre-filed testimony. We have to submit that pre-filed testimony by the 6th, so next Tuesday. So obviously it's not your only chance to get your questions out if you don't get them to us beforehand, but if you've got some, initial round of questions that we may, use to incorporate into the pre-filed testimony, we're welcome to consider that. We'd like to, know that and make sure it gets considered.
And can you elaborate on expert witness, filing for expert witnesses? So if any of their questions require an expert, we would want to know who that expert would be. We need to kind of come up with that master list to also have that as a.
Right. We did discuss this today, so if there are, I guess we'd like to know potentially who might be involved elsewhere as a potential witness. For example, if there's a concern about, something within the DPW concern of the city, and we want to call, Mike Hale or something to testify about that, we'd have to know that before the 6th in order to identify him and coordinate with him to talk about that. If there's other, people from the city or other people in other knowledge areas that might potentially provide useful testimony to you in answering your questions. So we need to know about that sooner so that we can add them to the witness list, because essentially, if they're not on the list, I'm not gonna say it's impossible to get them, but we'd have to get approval from the hearing officer to let them testify as a witness. It's a lot easier to have somebody on the list and not call them than to have somebody that's not on the list and try to call them.
And you want our questions by tomorrow, Dominique, right?
If
In
you
advance if
can,
we
yeah,
can.
really, if you can, just so that we have
I've sent
anything
a couple.
material. I saw them, thank you very much. Appreciate
The
it.
meeting is at 5:30. Where's, is it Kairos?
In Kairos, yeah, you all get to sit in the big
It's
chair.
at 7, isn't it?
5:30 for this one.
Oh, for the
Yeah,
first
this
one,
one's
yeah.
5:30, yeah.
Yeah, no, for the first one it is.
Yeah, that, it shouldn't be a short hearing, it's just going to be an opening and continuing to the twelfth. There might be some administrative decisions that are made.
And so if the public would come to such a meeting, will they have the opportunity, like we do at most public hearings, to have 3 minutes of time or whatever it may be, or is that not?
No.
gonna be- Okay,
No, because that would constitute evidence, so there's no taking of evidence at that first hearing. If the public has something about, intervening or party status or registering.
that would be the meeting.
Procedural, like a procedural question like that might be the meeting to do that. But if they are coming just to make a comment on something substantive, then that should be done at the 12th or the 15th, whenever that public comment period is open.
May I ask a question? Are the questions we have to be directed to DEP based on their determination or the applicant themselves?
I would think the applicant, or the applicant's consultant, witness, they might be directed to Brian and Weston Sampson to the peer review. There's really no role for DEP.
Okay.
The moments when it can take more than 45 days for deliberation, so as an example, there's a critical piece of missing information that the board wants, the applicant agrees to supply that. How does that would be an agreement that Art would facilitate with their applicant's counsel to say such a thing so that the timeline is stopped? Is that, like, are there moments when there can be more information gathered? I'm asking
Yeah.
specifically regarding the questions that Weston and Sampson has called out, everybody knows about them, the applicant has not responded to them. So if, as an example, in that moment, if there's a question that's posed, the board is concerned about it, the applicant hasn't responded to it in their testimony. Through cross-examination, it doesn't come up. The board could say, I don't have enough information to make my decision, and then it would be no because, as an example.
I think the board could use lack of information as a ground for denying. If it's not provided, I think if the board and the applicant agree to extend the time for the applicant to submit additional information to address a concern, I think that could be worked into the process if the applicant agrees to it, although the deadlines in the statute are tight and I think they are fairly strict. So I think it's something that we'd have to review on a case-by-case basis.
Anything else?
All right, well, I know I've thrown a lot at you and it is a very unique process. Doesn't typically come up, especially in Gloucester. So, it's a very niche area of the law. So welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Brian, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, not at this point, no. Thanks for inviting me to listen in. Appreciate it.
Good. Appreciate your attention to it. Any other questions or comments from the board on this topic? All right, let's move on. Thank you, Peter, again.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody, members of the public have any questions too.
Yeah,
If you want
I
to
don't
ask.
think there is any. Is there a member? Oh, sorry. Who's that? Who's saying that? Any comments?
So where do we register?
So you register with Dominique.
In the online health department website, there's a
There's a form to
FAQ, and
fill
at
out,
the bottom of
register.
the FAQ, it tells you exactly what you have to do, gives you
Okay.
all the addresses, and if you have any questions, call me directly, like ask me, put to my office, and I'll tell you exactly what to do.
Okay.
There's specific information that you need to include in your registration statement, you know, your name and address and declaration that you own the property if you're in a butter and things like that, so.
So I had an attorney to represent me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so his name and information too as well, so Dominique can
Tells you
help you
all
with
I
that.
that.
think he may have already been on the website, but I'll email him later tonight.
Yeah, notice of orders at the description, what's it called,
The pre-hearing order.
pre-hearing order
Yeah,
is, speaks lawyer very nicely.
okay.
So he'll know what to do or she'll know what to do. And then for the lay people, we've sort of broken it out in the FAQs to make it really clear what has to happen.
Okay.
So whether, if your lawyer's doing it, probably will know what to do, but if not, please call me.
Okay.
I'm happy to support it.
All right, great, thanks.
During public comment, how long do you have to speak? Are they gonna time you out?
It's really up to the hearing officer to decide, I think 3 minutes is generally usually the rule, it depends on how many people, you know, or wanna do it and how long, you know, how much time is left, or they wanna devote to it, but I mean, it's ultimately a decision up to the hearing officer, but I think the general time frame is, you know, 3 minutes or so per person.
And that will be decided on the seventh, the time.
Art had said that he'll establish the amount of time for speak. I don't know about the
Yeah.
testimony side, but the public comments.
Yeah, it might be, yeah, it might be, I think so. I think we could address it more specifically. with him.
If I can reach the hearing officer in advance of that meeting, I'll get those details in terms of how he wants to, whether it be whether he's gonna be deciding to let people speak before or after, any of that's releasable, I'll be sure to post it. So we'll, on our website, we'll flag anytime we have something new. So if you wanted to check back there, and certainly if you are, already have sent us notes, and, you know, we know, we'll be sure that we communicate anything that you need to know. Good, yeah, okay, that's it.
Thanks.
All right, let's move on to reporting of the various groups. Regulatory,
I'm up first, really quickly.
health record, sorry.
So a lot has been going on in the health department. I'm probably gonna steal a lot of Gabby's thunder, but you can also represent all of the volume metrics. Our fees for septic were approved by city council, so now in 30 days, those will be enacted, and of course, our fees for rental were already approved. And so those, I think it's the 15th and the 23rd respectively of May that they become valid. So the department's working on right now on building communication outreach to help everybody be informed on that, working with IT to get all of our permitting platforms updated and things like that. No easy task because we're short-staffed, so we're trying to be as smooth as possible and as helpful as possible, but there are gonna be sort of a soft launch, right, till we can be fully up to speed from an IT standpoint. We also had the opioid abatement RISE grant approved by city council, which we're excited about. And that is, again, thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
That is a $300,000 grant, $150,000 of that's being put in by other communities, the state's matching with $150,000 for a total of $300,000. And it's, you know, that's very exciting because we have significant work now to do between now and the second week in June, when we'll be launching, hopefully, the release of all these funds and this, you know, way that we want multiple community organizations to operate as one. So as if you were a multi-department company rather than organizations doing what they do. So this will be new for Gloucester, but we're pretty excited about it. We have a wonderful steering committee formed with the health director in Rockport, Ray Cahill, and Colleen Furman from Ipswich. So we have steering committees forming. We have an entire operational plan laid out. And if you're interested, I'm happy to present that plan to you. It's quite detailed, but the more you care, I'm happy to do that for you if you'd like. I could also just send it out to you so you can have a look. So is that a yes? Would you like to see those?
You certainly send it out and we can then put it on another meeting after people have
Okay.
had a look at it.
Okay, And so there's a terrific community meeting coming up on the second week of May that Danielle is scheduling. That we would love it if you could come and participate in, where we are having those that are providing the services, talk about their services. We'll talk about how it's gonna all run. And then we're gonna have members of the community, organizations, like Action as an example would be a user of these services. Come in, and meet with each one of the service providers and, beat up the idea so that we can, adjust before we launch, so as an example, if a service provider said, I'm gonna provide recovery coaching, and I'm gonna be able to respond to that inquiry in a day, right? And, Action, as an example, I'm not saying you would do this, but you could sit at that table, we're gonna call it service dating, and you're gonna say, well, I actually need people right away. I can't wait a day. I know somebody right now that needs help, and so that service provider is gonna make note of they need, instantaneously versus in 24 hours. And that's gonna help us further hone those services and hopefully have something that we launch that's gonna be viable with the users of the service as well as the people that are doing and delivering it. So that's exciting, and a lot of work. We also have applied, and this will be my last update, we've also finished our application process for the Public Health Excellence Grant. So we and Manchester would be working in partnership. And so far what we've done is basically set up a rough framework of how the money could be spent. And this is the state, the Office of Local and Regional Public Health funding all municipalities to work together and jointly drive public health excellence. So they fund basically staff and operating expense for you to be able to cover areas successful. So right now for us, as you're probably aware, we have a really strong prevention team, which is one tiny piece of health services. And so how can this grant help us flesh out support for all, more health services to either bring in more grant money or to support, what's needed in the community. Manchester has ebbs and flows of significant gaps in inspectional services. So we would never use one of our Gloucester inspectors to go do work for Manchester, but we would have headcount that can be either hired as a contract service or hired and staffed to support that. So what's happening here, and we already see it in the grants, is that the health department is going to be operating more and more regionally rather than only locally. And so this is the first time that, the inspectional services will be impacted. With this grant comes obligation. So the state will now tell us things they want us to do. Right, often the case by how you can spend the money, but in this case, we're gonna give you the money and we're gonna tell you what to do. And so they're also funding a full-time program manager against this to help them get the information they want without upsetting current staff. And that role will be a liaison to the OLRH as well as working with our two communities to kind of help them. This might be volumetrics like we already count. It might be utilization, which we already are counting. So there's a lot of things that maybe might be new to other municipalities that have already been focusing on because we've been looking at those expectations and heading toward them anyways. So that's all, that's good. So those are the big moving parts of what I'm tackling right now and the department is overall. And I guess one other thing we told you, and I know Erin, you were there, the city council gave, and Chelsea, I don't know if she's on the line. Oh, she is. I'm not gonna steal Chelsea's thunder. I'm gonna wait for her to be able to do her update. But there was some great stuff. So I'm gonna table that and let Gabby step up and speak for the rest of the team, unless there's any questions.
When will you hear about the Public Health Excellence Grant?
Fairly quickly. They're only giving it to a few communities and those communities know who they are. So they're trying to play catch up. It's $300,000 a year. And it can be more if we can prove the case for more. So they start off with that baseline. And what we've done so far is applied for the grant to talk about the things where our needs are. And our core needs are health services, inspectional services and technical assistance for digitization of our files and things like that. Those are the core needs. We will, if and when we're given the grant, we're gonna get to work and really get hard working about that. And then at that point, we'll brief you on all that and get your buy-in as well. Important for you to understand is that this is board driven. So we've been doing this to kind of go forward, but this is the time when the state is giving the Board of Health money to think about things that the Board of Health wants to focus on, right? As it relates to driving us towards public health excellence. So I'm your agent in that respect. And so we can share with you and brief you on SAFE 2.0 and everything the state's trying to do. And you really should, you're gonna be asked to sign and vote on unanimous support of a operation agreement between our two communities and with the state to say, yes, we agree to all of these terms. So that's to come, once they put us, kind of put this in place. So this is a little different than typical budgeting, right? But it's putting money in the hands of the board, to drive public health excellence. I'm your spokesperson. Okay, I'll stop there.
I was gonna ask a clarifying point. Of the 300,000, is it directive in terms of how much can go to staffing versus program development, or is it? carte blanche for me to decide?
There's a very sizable number of rows that you can assign things to. It's like a typical operating budget, like what is my head count, what is my operating cost? If you want to not hire and you want to outsource, you can do that. And so there's just any number of things that you might be able to add to it. It has to be in focus with an area that they are asking us to do through SAFE 2.0. And new is that we can focus on health services, right? That wasn't part of it before. Before it was just about what is regulated. But now they've expanded the remit to include what they also aspire to for 2.0, which is equitable access to healthcare and health services for all.
Well, the RISE grant fits in nicely with
Yes,
those objectives.
yes, exactly. Excited about that one too.
But we were mandated under that directive to have a program coordinator.
Yes, we are.
We
The
must-
full-time program
they
coordinator.
must,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is a mandate that they need that person to
Correct.
be sure that all of the things that they want to drive forward, those are being program manager. But that program manager also has accountability to us. So as an example, you have to have a minimum of a part-time program manager. We've chosen a full-time program manager, just knowing how much we're gonna have to orchestrate and not trying to pull from the existing teams as much as possible. And again, it's a draft budget. We can come in and talk about it and orchestrate it as you'd like.
A lot to digest at this one meeting. I'll be fairly brief. I'm sorry, Joe. Were we ready to move on?
By all means.
So from Bree's report, I would say nothing is notable. She has no pending cases right now. Everything is complete. I know she's out in the field today generating new work. What is most notable is the rental registry. We're working currently on the website landing page that will be very user-friendly to both landlords and tenants. Tenants' rights and responsibilities, landlords' rights and responsibilities, as well as resources, very heavily on resources. We're currently reaching out to our partner agencies and departments and how we can work together and cross-reference on our websites with an emphasis on user-friendly access. So Dominique likes to say, no sludge. We want to make it as convenient. What we learned today, because we were trying to develop a Spanish version, was that there is something in the top corner of every web page that says translate, and it will translate into any language. So we just need to put something on now that communicates that to the public. So
And have
that,
somebody that speaks Spanish read it.
that's what I'm saying. So how do we put something so that the person knows to go to it? But it's fantastic because then we don't need to deal with translation services. But we want to
Is
make
that on
it
the Google site?
on the Google site. It's on every site. We found it. It's all, we could go to our own
Ubiquitous?
website everywhere, right? But it's very powerful because a lot of the population who are tenants may need translation, and we want to make sure they have access to all the information they need
Yeah.
to be supported.
It's great.
So that's underway. And then from food inspections, Sophia's being steadfast. She's doing a lot of preparation right now for the summer season. And as you can imagine, that is moving along quickly. We have a couple opening restaurants and actually 2 more today came forward. So we expect it to be a very active summer. She's currently in development of event coordinator packets that will go out pre-season to allow all the summer operations to move smoothly so that not just the food operators, but the event coordinators will help facilitate all the paperwork that needs to go in for smooth
Do
review.
we have a way to communicate with the people that Sophie, for instance, will be looking at?
Yeah,
A way to communicate the new fee structure and
right. So that will go through the event coordinator because they are the ones bringing in the vendors. And then we'll be able to, I mean, it will all be on our website. So when they go to register to actually get
We're
a
also going to
permit.
do outreach though, Joe, to mail all of them and let them know about it. We could, in the case
Right.
of restaurant, we could also hold a webinar and invite them to come, you know, whether it be private or public. So there's
Right.
that communication path of how we make sure that we're reaching everybody and they know what's expected. Is a lot of what we're working on right now.
Right, like right now, we have the email capacity for everybody we currently permit to just do a blast email to alert them all. For vendors that we don't yet know about, we'll be working through the event coordinators who are bringing those vendors in.
And just so you're aware, the restaurant fees are not through yet. They're gonna be submitted on May sixth to City Council for referral to Budget and Finance. So that memo, you guys will get copied on it, but it's that will go to the mayor and then we have to go through Budget and Finance. So it's at least 2 or 3 weeks away before that. We have 30 days to wait then for that enactment. So first up is septic and rental. First up is rental, after that is septic, and then following that is food and all other.
Has been making steadfast progress with outreach on the known either O&M contracts that need updating or pump out folks that need to pump out. These are already known ones, not ones part of our further inquiry. And has been getting some good responses and getting folks to do the things that need to get done. And again, we're working for that as well to create a more user-friendly website for homeowners as a resource page to give them all the access to whatever they need to do to maintain their systems. And that's it.
Sorry, I should have mentioned it under free stuff, but for the housing inspections with the no more rental dwelling certificates, would it be possible for something to be posted on the website or something to be put on letterhead? Cause I think it'll come up for folks that are told they need to have a certificate of rental dwelling, and if we're just verbally saying the
Right.
city's not doing them anymore, if something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is something on, if you go to rental dwelling, like
Yeah.
you go to activate it,
Yeah,
there's a whole statement on that piece and
Okay.
she's done outreach. I know she sent you, I think you personally.
I got an email, but I asked if something could be on like, because there was just other stuff in the email of like,
Okay.
that I wouldn't give that to someone of like just something, cause I think it would be helpful.
Oh, you
for, like-
want a handout?
Or
specific.
just something that says like the city of Gloucester is no longer doing this, because I think like providers, especially like the
Right.
housing authority and stuff, if we can verbally tell people like the city's not doing this, but they're not gonna
Right.
always believe us depending on what's
Right,
going
and we've
on. but-
reached out to the housing
Yeah, I
authority, we're,
think-
we're in active engagement with them, but that sounds like
Perfect.
a great
I think it would
idea,
just
and
be
we'll
helpful
hone
to
it.
have.
Yeah, we can do
to
a
do
one
that.
pager.
Yep.
And Aaron, what's really important is that you all are still supporting the fact that they have to at least register and before. they
Oh,
know
very
if they
much
want.
so,
Okay,
yeah,
good,
Bree was very clear about that, and it was great, and told her we were at the ready for like registering, and we'll know that apartments like we rent would have to at Action, but, just having that piece that the rental dwelling certificate isn't happening anymore, I think would just be really helpful.
Great.
And we're really focusing on the future of this as well, so we have to get it enacted, but then building the services, so listing landlords being able to list their available units and tenants being able to find available units and things like that if you are registered. On both sides, so tenant also should have to read and understand what their obligations are.
Right.
So just whatever we can do, this whole year, from a communication standpoint, is really to be focused heavily on making sure we've connected with tenants and they understand how they, you know, what their rights are, and that we've connected with landlords and they are invested in using us as a service to support them and believe in the importance of following the regulations. Like we're really, and it's more than just announcing them. It's really kind of ongoing communications, events, forums. Who was the woman that we just discovered on, that, you know, we found out that there was an event being held by a side of community development, talking to a pod of landlords about how to get, I think you were there, right, Erin, to the Mass Energy?
No, she wasn't.
Oh,
there.
maybe a member of Action was there, because
Yeah.
a member of Action
You,
was.
there was a 2-member male team from Action.
Oh, yeah, I'm
for-
sure it was some of the energy gentlemen that were
Yes.
over there, yeah.
Right, it's very, very energy
Yeah.
focused for like, you know, new heating and things like
Yeah.
that. But it, yeah. it
So
was
what we did
discussed.
was sort of inserted ourselves, and
Yeah.
we're gonna insert ourselves in future ones,
I like
just
it.
make sure if we're gonna be talking to landlords, we can help them understand. And again, you know, any opportunity we have to build a dialogue and get them to, you know, embrace this path. And, you know, Marco, I know that when we were adopting these, there's concern, like how much are they gonna care? What are we gonna be doing about it? And you know, one of the things we're gonna really be measuring this year is how much are we able to affect behavior, right? And are we seeing complaints going down? Are we seeing people self-identify as in need if they're a tenant? Are we able to make these connections and be able to report that to you all? So hopefully we'll keep being informed, and if it doesn't work, if this path isn't working, then we can start to become more prescriptive as time goes on. But hopefully it'll work. It worked for the rest of society. Incentive.
Well, I think what was happening wasn't the best option, so I think we
Yeah.
gotta try something new and just keep an eye on it, so.
Yeah. Communicable disease reporting in general, what's really fantastic about Cindy this week, I'm speaking for her, she got her lactation consultant certificate, which means she can help new mothers, you know, understand how to nurse. It's been a lot of work for her to do that. I'm also found out that in speaking around the city, you know, that we're going to be doing outreaches to this Beverly Hospital and places like that to make sure that they understand the services that Cindy offers to new mothers. So as an example, in the healthcare industry and pharmaceuticals, they do these things called lunch and learns, where a pharmaceutical rep will come in and pitch you on all that they do and want you to, you know, start to prescribe their drug because of the efficacy or whatever it may be. Well, we're gonna do a lunch and learn on public health nurse and get the public health nurse to talk about all the services that are available for new moms. And do the same thing in pediatricians' offices and the like, to just be sure that a brochure alone isn't gonna get it done. Let's, you know, personally get in there and make sure the whole staff knows about it. So we're excited about that. And then in terms of illness, I don't know if you all have been looking at the BioBot numbers and the trend, and if I'd love to get feedback. I'm sorry, yeah, it is BioBot, right? Yes. I'd love to get feedback on that. So if anything that you'd like to see improved, Joe, you gave some suggestions when we last met. They're very receptive to hearing what was helpful. So if you're looking at data on those dashboards and you're like, God, I wish it was easier to do this, let me know that, because they're very interested in hearing that feedback. And or if any of the data is flatter for you than you'd like, and you'd like to have more views of it, you know, let me know and I'm happy to bring that forward. And I think there's nothing really too remarkable. You can see the COVID, we're kind of dwindling down. In terms of norms, Gloucester's still trending a little bit higher than the national average. Or even the regional average. We've had a little bit of a spike there recently, but it's still very low. Same thing for influenza. Looks like we're heading into some good days here in that bottom row. We're starting to be green, which is very low incidence. The influenza, Mark, I don't know if you've seen the same thing.
I think it's covered in a long time.
What about influenza? Is it?
Significantly lower.
Yeah,
Yeah, flu B, a little bit of that. Otherwise, they haven't had any cases in the last couple of weeks.
great. So yay, summer. And again, you can see from the BioBot data how we're trending, and again, significantly above national averages for our most recent data between January and April. And if you have a chance, go in and click, you can isolate it to the month and just compare and contrast to get a sense of where we are here in Gloucester. This is really important also, in the event that any federal data does wane. We're gonna have data right here that's gonna help us understand what we're facing. So I'm happy to, have that contracted. I believe that we asked for it in budget. And I have budget meeting on May 23rd for budget and finance presentation. And so hopefully that will be renewed because it was supported by ARPA funds for this go round. But we kept money out of the public health nursing side and her old clinic dollars, and we kept a chunk of them to be able to afford this. And we've negotiated a lot with BioBot to be able to keep our price pretty low. And we also are tracking.
If we can, a lot of people appreciate this.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that we can get testimony to that effect from people outside the department, that would probably be useful for city council and the administration to hear.
So you mean by testimony, what sort
Well,
of from whom?
From outside the group, that are aware of this data, maybe not the actual log on to the site. But
Yeah,
they hear about the data, a lot of people appreciate it. And to the extent that we can get them to put something, a sentence or two in writing saying, this is really valuable, I use it all the time or whatever.
terrific.
Like for continued funding, you mean, if that comes into
Just-
question, or just in general?
Just to support continued funding, because it's a tough year, and this one element is putting us slightly over the zero growth. We had to make a lot of cuts in our costs to hit zero growth. So normally it's level service funding. This year it's no change in funding, right? So typically you might have a 2% growth in your budget to accommodate price changes and or a new piece of your service that's important to get to. It's still considered level service. In this year, because of the state of the budget, that all departments are asked to be flat, meaning no growth. And we believe strongly that all roles, people deserve their increases, so all staff are getting the appropriate increases that they would get every year as part of cost of living, et cetera. But our other costs, so anything we're spending on is going down. So we reduced uniforms, we reduced training because we actually get a lot of free training now from the state. And we'll get more when this grant comes through. We reduced our outsourced septic review by about $10,000 from 20 because that was there to help our former sanitarian manage her workload. Cody's working a little faster. And also we're quite comfortable now asking complex projects to be sent out for third-party review. So we feel like if we really have a gap there, we can force the third-party review. And so on and so forth. We just kind of chipped away at whatever we could do. We're spending a little bit less everywhere next year. Cindy ran and will continue to run blood pressure clinics at the senior center. And she's running them on the 4th Thursday of every month. We have some volunteers supporting her on that as well, going in and helping seniors understand where their blood pressures are, giving them a little chart to track it. There's some, other services they're gonna be doing like calibration of home monitoring systems and the like. So That was Cindy responding, as she always does, immediately to a board outcome from, because I'm sitting as an advisor on the Council on Aging, and I brought up the fact that they can't do them anymore via the resources that they had, and Cindy just instantly stepped up, as she always does, which is, you have to be really careful with Cindy, because as soon as you say something, she does it. Like when we were like, we need sharps for our cleanup, they were like next to my office door like that moment. It was just like, okay, not right now. But she's just really responsive, and I tried
When
to.
she was here earlier this evening,
Yeah.
and I told her that she asked, do people like the reports that she puts out every week and emails them to us? And I told her, yeah, they're terrific, but are they a lot of work? And I suspect they are, and she said, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
She didn't really say yes, but you could read her.
Yeah,
And so I said, you know, you can do it every 2 weeks and it would satisfy me. I didn't sound out the board, but I suspect you'd all feel that way too. But Cindy came back and said, other people want me to do it every week. I don't know who the other people are, but.
well, the mayor's office gets some, Council on Aging gets some, and she
So
might
as
be
far-
sending them to other
If
offices
I can
as well.
speak for the board, then you can
Every 2
communicate to her that as far as we're concerned, every 2 weeks is fine.
Okay, fantastic. What we have done to help Cindy, we had an intern come in last year and set her up so that every week she has to go to exactly the same locations and pull the next number to kind of do these. It would be nice if we could have this become administrative for her. And that's stuff, you know, again, like, I wish she would tell me that, because then I would also help to you know, relieve her workload. So there's ways of relieving her workload as well by not forcing her to go out, get the numbers, and, you know, we can. I want her commentary on the numbers. I don't want her to have to go get the numbers, you know?
Right.
So, but thanks for that. So we'll make them every 2 weeks and see if anybody squeaks. And obviously if something happened, we could do more. So that's it for me. If it's all right with you, Chairman, I'll turn it over to
Yes.
Chelsea.
Chelsea, are you still
She's
there?
still there.
She's still there. She's just working, I think, while we're.
Oh, here she comes.
Hi, I'm here. Dominique's correct. I was and having some emails.
You can go home, you stayed there.
I know I got cranking on stuff and I just got a bunch of stuff done, so I'm here. And thank you all for your time. Just again, I say this every month. I put a comprehensive list of recent programs, initiatives, trainings, and events that we are working on as a prevention team. I'm going to highlight a couple of them, and then if you have any specific questions, happy to jump in. I'm very cognizant of the fact that I'm the last person on the agenda, so I'll try to be quick. So prevention team has been very busy, all good things. As Dominique alluded to earlier in the meeting, we were very honored to receive an official commendation from the Gloucester City Council for our Gloucester Youth Leadership Council. So we were approached by City Council who offered to recognize the young people in these groups who have been making a positive difference in the community, doing campaigns around mental health awareness and substance use prevention. And so they invited us to attend. Can everybody hear me okay? The positive. Okay, great. So they invited our Gloucester Youth Leadership Council, both middle school and high school group, to attend the City Council meeting last Tuesday, April 22nd. It was really wonderful. The youth leaders invited their families, and some of them even invited their trusted adults, which included our school resource officer at the middle school, Officer Sutera. And they were honored by the Gloucester City Council, Mayor Verga, and Senator Bruce Carr, which was really special. They each got an official commendation from each of those three groups and took a group photo and just were really, I think, recognized for the hard work and the positive change they're making in the community. It's really important to balance, I think, some of the challenges that have been rising to the surface around adolescents in this community most recently, and balance those challenges with the positives that are really happening. So we were really, really grateful and proud of our youth for all of their hard work and for getting recognized. So that was our highlights. of this past month. A couple other things I wanted to mention that are coming up. Today is the first day of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So in honor of that month, we are offering a series of 7 youth mental health first aid trainings throughout the month of May. One training in each of the 7 communities in our regional youth prevention network. These trainings are 8 hours, so they're hefty. We're offering them in 2 options for format. So we're offering some in 1 full 8-hour day and others in 2 consecutive 4-hour days. Offering them on weekends, during the week, really trying to provide as many different options as possible for folks who are interested in building their skill set in recognizing the signs of a teen who may be struggling with a mental health challenge, and giving them some concrete action steps to take to get that young person support. So we're really excited about that. We have, our goal is getting 70 people signed up, and as of tonight, we have 63. So we're almost at our goal, and I'd love to even surpass it. And yeah, we're excited. We'd love to have any board members and or any of your colleagues who may be interested attend. It's being offered at no cost, free lunch, and just a really in-depth and empowering. Let's see, a couple more things. We have also been working with Cape Ann Art Haven, the Community Impact Unit, and the Gloucester Public Schools to bring a series of art workshops to the elementary schools and the middle school, where students are able to create a piece of art that's going to be displayed as a collective larger piece made up of each of their smaller pieces at the Gloucester Student Arts Festival. So that's on Saturday, May 17th at O'Malley Middle School. And we will be there showcasing the students' artwork and really promoting a sense of belonging and unity, and really empowering our youth to kind of showcase their art and showcase their voice. And then lastly, I know Dominique spoke about the prize grant. So Lacey Natty has been working really hard on that, and we're excited to see that come to fruition. Last thing I'll just highlight is yesterday our team went to Gloucester High School and participated in the Teen Health and Wellness Fair, where over 40 organizations were present at the high school, tabling and showcasing their resources focused on mental health and physical health. And I would say, honestly, I think the whole school came by. All of the resource tables were set up in the field house, and students were encouraged to come by during their lunch break. And many teachers allowed them to go during the second to last class of the day. So based on the number of students we saw come through, I would say it was at least 75% of the school that came through to access information and resources about available supports in the community. So that was really cool. They cleaned us out. We left with nothing. They took all of our flyers and all of our giveaways and everything, which was the point. So we were really excited. And it was a great touch point for students to learn more about our Gloucester Youth Leadership Council, our North Shore Youth Leaders Group, and some of the programs that we have running right now. And I think those are kind of the key highlights I wanted to touch on, but I'm happy to answer any questions about anything I discussed or anything else that's in the report.
Well, Chelsea, let me just say that having the city council recognize the youth leadership group was much more impactful, I think, than I would have imagined it would be. In the sense that the students looked extremely proud to be recognized, and they brought their parents. And so that goes a long ways to building the reputation of the health department in the community. And so that's an added benefit, I think, that we should be aware of as we try to build recognition of the good that the department does, and it's not just imposing fines and fees, as it were. And so kudos to you for making that happen.
Yeah, and I thank you, and I agree. It was like really heartwarming to see that our youth leaders, like I think they were really proud, and it meant a lot to them, and they should be. I also just really have to give kudos to David Tucker, who oversees our Gloucester Youth Leadership Council and our regional Northern Youth Leaders Group, and he really credit goes to him. He was instrumental. He's instrumental in coordinating the group, but also he really did a lot of work to make sure that families were made aware that they were invited to attend this event, and did a lot of outreach to families and to youth. It takes a lot of work to corral youth because they're so busy and their attention is being pulled in so many directions. And so he really knew this was important for our youth leaders to be honored and recognized, and for their families to be there to bear witness to that. And so kudos to David. He really did a lot of work.
Great.
The other thing that's fantastic about David is that he's really gone above and beyond. He's done, there's the job description of what he should be doing, and then there's how he has just evangelized and grown and really, supported and personally driven the adoption of this, of, being part of these programs. And, organizations are reaching out to him now, talking about other things that are needed in the community. So he's really just become a leader in this area, and it's well above, what is expected of him. So he just completed reviews, by the way, of all of the staff as another little side director update. He's, that got called out for him as well. He's just doing a fantastic job. I'm sorry if you covered it. Did you review with these guys what we did at the schools for, working with the schools in response to, youth violence, that we're seeing, crop up?
Didn't call out, but I'm happy to. I put it in the report, so I will touch on that.
I think it's important for you guys to understand something significant that's going on.
Yeah, so there's been recently some, kind of visible events that have occurred in the community, and also a lot of community concern around behaviors of adolescents, particularly middle-aged, or not middle-aged, excuse me, middle school age youth, behavior both in school and out in the community. And so in response to this community concern, the Gloucester Public Schools, the Gloucester Health Department, the Cape Ann YMCA, the Gloucester Police Department, who am I missing? I'm definitely missing something.
The mayor's office.
The mayor's office, I knew. Came together to host a community forum on Tuesday, April 15th at O'Malley Middle School. And it was really well attended. I mean, well over 100 people. I would say at least 125 community members attended. And that was a combination of parents, school staff members, coaches, even some youth themselves attended. And what was discussed was kind of each of the organizations present kind of shared some of the policies, programs, and practices that they have in place to keep young people safe, healthy, and engaged in the community in a positive way. So I think it really was meant to balance concern with hope and positive things that are happening. And then also the intention was really to come together as a community to develop solutions, community solutions moving forward, recognizing that issues of bullying or inappropriate behavior or even violence among middle school age students is a community issue that requires community solutions. So really trying to get ideas from the people in attendance, and that was done through some focus or like breakout groups as well as full group discussion. So I was really amazed and impressed that so many community members showed up. It shows that they really care. And this was on a night, it was like downpouring, like pouring buckets, and people still braved the elements to come because they care that much about keeping our youth safe. So next steps, I mean, this was the first step in a process. It wasn't a one and done meeting. I know the schools are having their own meetings around like policies in schools that are implemented to keep kids safe. But I think as a city department, in conjunction with the mayor's office, we're looking at working on some kind of citywide kindness campaign, and making sure that we are spreading that message of, we all need to be kind, we all need to be understanding and respectful to one another, no matter what age we are. So more to come on that, but it was a really, powerful event.
So the mayor's office has already sent out a follow-up email to all of the folks that registered. The superintendent of schools during the school hearing, or school department, what is it called? School committee meeting, excuse me, had a big briefing of like sort of the approaches that they take within the schools. And I can send you the link to that if you're interested, talking through sort of the dynamics of adolescent growth, and also sort of the laws and obligations that the schools are held to, which is very informative. And then with that, these breakout sessions are now coming together to be helping the mayor's office, and Pam Toby is sort of leading the charge on it. Will be helping as well in creating sort of some actions that we as a community can take to help drive, sort of change the behavior of our youth and have the whole community support how that gets done. It's a complex one, as you might imagine. That's what we're focusing. So would you guys like me to send you out the link to the school committee meeting? So you can hear what they're doing? Yes?
Sure.
Okay.
Good job, Chelsea.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Again, I know I'm last, so I'm always like, oh man, people want to go home. Thank you.
And I can announce this because Lacey put it on the whiteboard, which is our wing board. Lacey's having a baby. So we have a health department, our first health department baby. We're very excited. So we're happy for her.
I will say that Chelsea, you and David, it was a sold out show at the city council meeting. They were shipping in more chairs for people to
Yeah.
sit in. Had to wait. You were by far the highlight of the agenda, I think, in 3 accommodations each. And I think it just speaks to the work that you do. And I think seeing you and David like talking to the students and just the rapport you had with them was really special. So I hope you both know just how great of a job that you do. And it was really nice to be able to actually see that. So you say all the great things you guys are doing, but to actually see it was awesome. So
Yeah, the relationship that they have.
exactly, yeah.
Thanks, Erin. Not usually a packed house at city council unless it's something bad. Usually. Something good that packed the house.
Concerns of the board. Any other comments? Worries?
The same ones that I always have every week, every time. Really about the federal government.
Well,
What
yes.
they're gonna do to us.
I mean, it's our national leadership that's leading to some of this nonsense in the schools.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kids saying, you don't have any power over me.
I do appreciate that Cindy sent out the messaging from the commissioner of DPH
Yes,
too.
I
She's
read
forwarded those. Those have been really helpful.
Yeah.
to see.
And I should have thought I commented to her.
There is some sanity somewhere.
It's very disheartening.
You know. 3 years and.
How can we last that
Yeah,
long?
exactly. A lot of people are just thinking that, how can we just hang in there? Who knows what the trickle down will be? If you all have any questions on the Gondolin Road thing, really any questions, please send them to me because we can certainly reach out to you individually. It's not deliberating, looking for you to understand stuff. Erin, I know you're new to all of it because you weren't here for the first round, so it's
Yeah.
probably a big lift for you. So if you need me to get you a special session with like Weston and Sampson to just make sure you're fully versed. I don't know if it's possible because they're really driving our behavior, but I just want to be sure that you have what you need.
Yeah, I had gone through the stuff when you sent it before and I briefly looked at what you sent and need to see if I have any questions.
I have a
But if I
quick
do, well,
question.
yeah.
I know we had that information session at one point,
Yes.
and I had several questions at the time. I reviewed some of the stuff that you sent. I didn't see that any of my questions were answered.
So then those questions still stand, and that's what you should send to me,
Okay.
right? So if you believe that the new application and the site determination has not addressed your concern, then that's what you should
Because I
send.
believe it would, what, Tetra Tech or whatever that was there.
Yeah, that's their record, that's their
Yeah,
equivalent
yeah.
of Weston and
I know
Sampson.
there were several questions answered, not just by myself, but it seems as though to me that, at least from what I'm interpreting, is that the DEP has already made their decision. And we're just there for what?
Well, yeah,
So we can elaborate more, but just to be clear, you are sitting as an agent of the DEP to look at local conditions that may not have been in the application that the DEP had for consideration, so you have knowledge that the DEP may not. That is relevant to to the site, right? That's the main thing. So it's like, if you have a question that is literally tending to that, like, I know this about this geographic area, I know this about, this very specific aspect of the site. Those are the things that we, really are empowered to bring forward.
There are pictures, when we did the original thing, there were pictures on how the site worked. And I really spent over an hour just trying to get through it, slog through it.
Yeah.
Which they did
I
change.
didn't notice if there were any
In the
pictures.
Tetra Tech, in the second submission of the Tetra Tech, where they have sort of a short list of questions, in the back are plans that you can look. Now, if you want, if it's convenient for you, we can print them out on our plotter and send you big copies of them, so you're not staring at a computer screen trying to like page around it. Would you like
Yeah,
that?
that would be very
Okay, so we'll
helpful.
take that as an action item for
Yeah.
sure.
Because one of my questions was saying was that how are the trucks gonna get around in and out? Because
Yeah.
the original one, it was only one
Yeah.
way in and one way out.
Just super careful not to talk about it right now, just
Okay, yes.
because we, he just went to all that trouble to make sure that we're compliant.
Yes, yes,
We
yes.
don't wanna not be compliant.
I just wanna see it.
But
that's all.
yeah, exactly. So I can definitely get you that. And again, if there's a very specific question of like, you're not understanding something, like, I don't see how this is attended to, or this is something that's been outstanding, is it in fact attended to? We're gonna forward those questions to, anything you send to us is gonna go to both the applicant as well as to Weston and Sampson. And if it's something that's like resolvable, because it's just something that you're like, it's not in the document you're looking at, we can point you, like, go look here or help you.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's relevant to testimony, then we'll make sure that that gets submitted as content that needs to get considered.
I looked at the Weston and Sampson thing. I started looking at the DEP and I said, how many pages?
I know, it's a lot of work, you guys. I so appreciate it. It's really important though, because you are the body that's representing the city right now in terms of if this is